club lovers. I am so happy to have you here as we have this show. And we have pre recorded it because, sometimes you have to plan for internet connectivity issues. But we are so, so happy that we have this particular guest in the online studio tonight. And as you know, it is my custom to always begin every show with a quote from another African author and African voice. And that quote usually encapsulates what I've learned about the guest. So tonight's quote is from Wangari Maathai. Begins with a burden and a split second moment when you understand something like never before. That burden is on those who know. Those who don't know are at peace. Those of you who do know get disturbed and are forced to take action. And I think this sums up this woman's career. And we are so privileged to have her in the studio tonight. And her name is Hilda J. Twongyeirwe from Uganda. Welcome, Hilda. How are you?
Thank you, Ina. Well, I'm well, thank you. I'm so blessed. I feel on your radio in the studio. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard of Hilda before and are interested to know about her career, I'm going to kick off the interview by telling you all a little bit about her. So Hilda J. Twongyeirwe hails from southwestern Uganda, Kasirere village on the shores of Lake Bunyonyi. She is a published writer and an editor. She has coordinated various publishing and editorial activities and is a member of different media, literary, and women's initiatives. She is a philanthropist with the Lion Service Club of Kampala Central, and she loves working in teams. She holds an MA in Public Administration and Management, a BA in Social Sciences, and a diploma in Education. Currently, she works with FemRite, that's FEMRITE, Ugandan Women Writers Association, and also coordinates the Women in Media activities of the Grasa Michelle Trust. One of her first books ever was the book or children's book, Fina the Dancer. And she was the recipient of a certificate of recognition in 2008 from the National Book Trust for that book. She went on to create more poetry and short stories, which has appeared in various journals, magazines, including The Threshold by the Nile and the Poster Poetry Project anthology, a number of stories with FemRite, including Becoming a Woman in 1998, Headlines in 2001, The Pumpkin Seed and Pumpkin Seeds, and many, many others. She was a mentor in the 2013 Writivism workshop. Her story, Baking the National Cake, was published in October 2013 as part of the Words Without Borders project. You can read it online. It is still up by women writing in Indigenous African languages. She's a contributor to the 2019 anthology New Daughters of Africa, edited by Margaret Busby. So that is Hilda's illustrious career. So Hilda, how did you get into even publishing or writing, and to have done such a wide, diverse range of things and projects?
Thank you, Elena. I think I didn't really set out as a writer. I didn't set out to, I know in my early life that I would end up writing, but I think sometimes the schools we go to, the people we associate with, in a way contribute to waking up our dreams, to tickle our dreams, and is how I stumbled into the career that in now. But I do remember when I was in school, when I was in primary school, I do remember participating a lot in art activities in the school, playwriting and acting and singing. I was a choir member, And so that is, that was the beginning of the nurturing of the artist in me. And then later, when I went to secondary school and myself in a big library of writers I had never heard about, and I probably should also recommend two of my teachers, and they are both late. But when I went to college, I met two teachers, two of our lecturers. One was called Rugambwa Otim. He was teaching us literature. The other was Hope Keshuvi. She was teaching us English, and they were incredible teachers. They were these teachers who, when you fail, when you're trying and you're failing, they don't tell you you're useless. They tell you you can make it. They tell you, we see that you only need to try a little harder. And they had written, they had published, they had published some poetry. Hope was writing young adults novels, and they were such inspiration. So I was doing literature, I was doing English language, and we were doing a lot of school setting. We wrote our own plays, which we brought back to class and discussed them. We wrote our own things, and I thought I could write a little more, but still, even then, I didn't think I knew I was going to get into teaching. I didn't think I would have it cut out to be completely in writing and nurturing of other people's writing. Yeah. And then when I went to university and met more teachers who again, at university I did literature at degree level. Hope and Otim, I had met them when I was doing a diploma in education. When I went to university a year later, I met other teachers. I met Mary Okrut, who later founded FemRights. She was my teacher, and she was writing, she had published, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Yes. So later when she said, do you want to join women who want to establish an association of women writers? Yes, sir. Yes, I am here. So that is how I joined in. Yeah. I taught literature, and then after a few years, I came into FemRights, where I've now totally gone into nurturing of writing and editing other writers, ensuring more and more women's voices are heard. Yeah. So that was my journey to where I am today.
Yeah, well, that's a rich journey. And I think what interests me about that journey is the highlight of your gift for nurturing relationships, because you remember those who inspired you, and have had that torch inside of yourself ignited by their inspiration and example, and have carried that through your entire career from your early days in teaching, because I understand you did teach for the first decade of your career before retiring and entering into more development work and definitely creative enterprise in terms of nurturing female writers. So that is really, the consistent thing has been managing relationships and honoring the power of what we get from relationships throughout that journey. So that's really, really amazing. And so congratulations to you for
Thank
that. And
you.
we're very honored to have you with us. One of
Thank
the
you.
early works that I'd like to just touch on briefly is Fina the Dancer, and why that interest. A story about a young girl. It's a children's book. When we talked about it earlier, we were like, it's a little children's book, but it's like, this is so important. And it's about her journey, and she almost guards or protects this artistic gift she has. And when she's then heard, or there's a rumor that comes out that she's HIV positive. Can you tell us a little bit about why or how that book came into being?
So that book, I think it when with time, with more understanding of HIV, society is more receptive, more accommodating, and yeah. But at that time when I wrote that story, there was so much stigma, and so different publishers were publishing literature to go into schools, literature for children. And so I asked a publisher for children, and they said, yes, bring us your manuscript. So I had never written for children before. I just thought, okay, let me give it a try. I chose stigma because I thought, this is, yes, addressing children, but this is not just a children's issue. It cuts across. Even adults have stigmatized other adults and also stigmatized children. I thought it was a very good entry for me into, and that is how I wrote it. It wasn't easy for me because I had never written for children, and so I wasn't sure of which language, and probably a different book at that time. I was glad that it went through the vetting process and got onto the bit of adapted for Rwandan schools. The names in the book are different. They've been adapted for the Rwanda set. Yeah. And also I was thinking about, okay, there's to empower children and to empower the girl child. So it also has empowerment aspects for children and for the girl child. Yeah, that's what I was addressing in that book. Yeah.
Well, I think if you had to do only one book for children in your entire career, that was a good one to choose, and it's definitely been celebrated accordingly. And there's just something so beautiful about the pictures or the word pictures that you gain of this young girl who's so in love with this aspect of herself. But there's another aspect that the world is rejecting and repulsing and reviling. And so I think it's so important to be able to bring those stories out into the public and equip young girls, but also the world, the people around them, to be able to have a
Yes.
different conversation about that. But then, I mean, that
Yes.
book, was published. It was acclaimed. It's being adapted. It's kind of on its own journey. But then you yourself, as a writer, lean more towards short stories and poetry. And you've contributed the same to many of the anthologies and the books that you've been a part of. So it would be interesting to now find out, what has that been like for you, especially when you are sitting in the position of nurturing writers, and you're now working with women's voices. So now you're working with, the grown-up women, but you also have to create space and room for your own voice on the same platform. How did you find the balance in that tension?
That's a very, very a very important, Selena, because many times I feel um, I feel like I need more time to my own creativity. And sometimes when I'm running a project, I am thinking, now this is going to be the last for some time, until I've done something for my project ends. In my mind, another project for me. And so one after, but there's a beauty in working with women. There's a beauty in working as teams. For instance, this morning I got an email, someone asking me to send 5 poems, 5 of my poems, for to be published in an anthology where they are translating African women's poems to Spanish. She said I was recommended by another woman I have worked project. So it's not, it's when you're part of a network, you give, and you're also, so it's
All right, so we've had a slight connectivity challenge there in the recording, but I hope we've managed to able to just gain the gist of some of what Hilda was saying, which is just the power of relationships. That as much as you pour out to others, and definitely in your career, pouring out to others, that always comes back to you. And I think that that is so inspiring, and would be an encouragement, I think, to other people who are maybe considering writing and publishing for the very first time, that this is something that they can get into. And as lonely as the journey seems, there are actually people that are involved, especially when you join, I think, an organization like FemRight. There's an environment and a system geared and motivated and inspired and into making sure that your voice gets heard. Um, but we've come to the end of today's recording, and we're so happy that you could join us. We really ask that you would just get a chance to link to some of Hilda's work. And you can find a lot of Hilda's short stories and poetries in the publications on the Uganda FemRight website. And they have a tab on there called Publications. And they have e-publications which you can download or view immediately online. And you can see not only a lot of Hilda's poetry, but a lot of the women she's nurtured, and many voices who are publishers and editors in the industry on that link. So please do yourself a favor and then be inspired, and have your hope renewed that there is a community out there waiting to receive you as a female writer. So that's it from us for today's show. And we give you thanks Hilda, for joining us and for talking to us. The time that you've been with us. We know we've had some connectivity challenges, but I trust that what you shared is going to help somebody who is viewing and maybe considering how to get into this writing journey and seeing how many of the different tracks that they can take. Because you've mentored, you've edited, you've published, you've curated anthologies, you've written yourself in different forms, and you've also worked with different forms in writing. So I think that that is amazing and that's great. Hilda, it's been great
Thank
that
you.
you've been with us, and we bless you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll see you all again next week at the same time with another amazing African female writer right here on the Tando channel on the Book Club. Good night, all. Stay safe, and most importantly, during this long winter,